Motorsports back with the Golden Bracket Racing YouTube channel, 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central, every single Tuesday here on the Golden Bracket Racing YouTube channel and Facebook page. And if you can't make it there, then you can always listen to it on the podcast a little bit later, anywhere you get your podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to all the platforms. We always got to start out by thanking TSR Racing Products, Champs Performance Parts, BRG 3D Printed Parts, Syntex Printing out there in Temple, Texas. Driven Racing Oil, where you can use code GBR10, get yourself 10% off your order shipped to your door. Proform Parts, visit proformparts.com. Tons and tons of parts and products over there to get your hot rod in order for 2023. I actually just got off the phone with them earlier today talking about doing a carburetor video. Hopefully I'll have something on that up either this week or next week at the latest. Kind of going through that new carburetor that they have, alcohol-specific carburetor, and give you guys the ins and outs about that whole deal. And, of course, Crew Chief Pro software. Visit crewchiefpro.com and get yourself an ET prediction software that'll definitely help you out in your racing ventures. So, George, what's new, man? It's cold at my house.
Nothing new here. Nothing new at all. It's cold here, too. I didn't expect it to be this cold here in Texas, and looking like I think I saw that Funny Car Chaos even got moved because the weather's going to be a little crazy this week, which is a good thing for me since Gleghorn had to move his race into May. That means I can actually probably make it, so that helps me. My son's birthday is the same weekend as his race, so I definitely want the shot at running 2 points races on a, I think, 4 points race schedule. You win anything there, and you're bound to wind up in a pretty good situation as far as points league goes. So looking forward to that. Otherwise, man, I just got to go with I told you so right off the bat. I am pointing this comment directly at Brian and Tyler. I told y'all was going to break the internet and that you was going to have all kinds of customer service and drag racers like, hey, where is my receipt? Hold a second 64 car shootout. You'll be just fine doing it. Hey, if you guys do it, more power to you, by the way, because I think you've got enough of a following right now in that race to hold 2 64 car shootouts for $100,000 if you wanted to. Drop it down to 50 and put 50 in your pocket. I don't really care. I don't think the racers would care even. So you heard it here first on GBR. Seemingly that race went up for sale, I believe, at noon today. It was sold out at $139. What a coincidence. Isn't that Sean Sarah's racing number?
Yeah, I believe so, 139P. Actually, Supercomp just commented in here, was meant to be, long live 139P.
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. So I saw that on 00, and I'll leave out the rest of the words to that Facebook page. But I saw that on 00, and that's pretty neat, man. So here's a look at that flyer again. Hopefully, a lot of us here at Going Bracket Racing got a chance to get into that race. I know I didn't because I'm way out here in Texas. But if I was anywhere close, hey, I'd have entered this one myself. To be honest, to be able to race at historic Beach Bend Raceway out there, and I want to say it's in doggone it, it's Bowling Green, Kentucky. Definitely a very nice track. I grew up there quite a bit too. So, yeah, man, enough of what I got to say about the TB promotions because the list could keep going. We could probably fill the whole stream. That's not what we're here to do today. I hear somebody named Quez, I don't know how many times a week, and that's from my friend Casey. So I'm going to bring you to a show, a person that you may have heard of already on Going Bracket Racing. They call him Quez the Duck. Not Quez. What's going on?
What's up, man?
Yeah, welcome to GBR, man. Glad you got to take some time out of your day to come and chop it up with us. I know that you don't know me. We've never met, but I promise I feel like I know you because Casey talk about you quite a bit, man, as you guys get to run in the same circles out there in Carolina. So you got to go ahead and tell us and let the fans and followers, I should say, know, how did you get bit by the bug of bracket racing? What got you into this sport?
All right, so I moved in with my grandparents very young, about 3 or 4, and my grandpa was hard and heavy into it, and I was like crying, running down the road every time he'd leave because he couldn't take me with him. And so when I was 8, of course, I asked for a junior, and instead of the junior, I got a primer and black 68 Nova with street tires on it on the trailer. Disgusted with that thing, but I still drive that same car today. So
Yeah, man. And that was actually, we were getting ready to get into that right before we got on the show. And I said, no, we're not going to yet, because that was my question number 2 here. I want to know about the Blue Nova, man. I heard you and your grandpa built that car whenever you were little, and it's been around as far as, kind of like you said, ever since you've been a little kid.
yeah.
And in fact, Michael Crumpler told me a story of, he remembers whenever you were maybe like 10 years old and your grandpa was talking about, or somebody was asking him about selling it or something. And he says, all I remember is looking at Quez, and he looks at him immediately and says, well, why don't you just sell him your car? Mine isn't for sale.
Yeah. We were at Dylan Benson, and I think a guy before it was Galot, and he asked me about it, and I was like, my car ain't for sale. Hell, I ain't even drove it yet. He's trying to buy it. So, but I made my first pass in it. I was 13 at Kinston. I was only supposed to make 60-foot passes. I went a 749, 90 mile an hour. Gramps was at the fence, had no help. He said, I learned how to race. He said, nobody taught me, so you got to learn yourself. So
how did that work out?
it worked out pretty good. I mean, there was a lot of driveway burnouts before I got to the track, for sure.
Yeah, all I know is, go ahead, George.
You got it. I
was just going to say, speaking of Kinston, that was Quez was the one behind me that whenever I lost brakes in the Firebird and almost went off the end of the track and stopped right before the sand, Quez comes down. First thing he says, he gets out of the car, man, what are you doing here? Me and Medina are just sitting down there. Medina's actually kind of freaking out because he sees everything, and I'm kind of just like, well, that sucked. And Quez comes down, gets out of the car, says, man, what are you doing down here?
Guess you were trying to stop, huh, Casey?
I stopped. It made it.
Hey, you made it. You didn't go into the kitty litter. You probably would have found a little bit more than what you was looking for in that kitty litter, big dog.
Would have went into the corn, probably.
Corn. So, Quez, you've worked at one of the premier facilities in the country, probably in the world. Okay, and tell us what that's like. What does Galot Motorsports Park do? Kind of that sets them apart, in your opinion, to other tracks.
Different than other tracks. Well, there's a lot. I mean, I ain't never seen a track get so much participation in a points race series than Galot. I think we averaged for a year close to 190, 200 entries a race. I mean, it's just remarkable how many people show up for 2 5-granders on a Saturday and Sunday, and occasional Friday night gambling race. But the racing there is top tier. I mean, I still ain't got a big check from Galot. I'm chasing one of them every weekend.
Yeah, man.
It's that's the only thing I can think of separate. I've never seen so many cars come for a bracket race, for a points race. That I believe we had 89 enter the points last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you said, that's just entered the points because people like me who race there all the time. I actually didn't enter the points last year because I was getting ready to have my kid, and I knew I couldn't participate. And the way my luck always works is I would have been, in the points lead or something, and then had to quit for the year because that's how it goes for me. So, what do you think? Like with that particular track, how often do you work there, and what positions do you work the track? A little bit of everything?
So last weekend, or the triple nickel weekend, I was a water box guy Thursday for a couple hours. I was part-time announcer Saturday. And then Saturday night, I think I ended up being the temporary starter for so I mean, and Also, I was temporary on running a computer for a couple of minutes.
So one of these days you'll be able to just take over as track manager.
No, I'm gonna leave that for Ben. No, that's a lot to do. But I mean, I learned it all. He calls me if he needs me. I'll show up. Ain't no problem. I'm always there. They look out for me pretty good. So there is no issue whatsoever going up there helping them out.
So do you think it's the facility itself, or is it the people involved, or a combination of both and all the racers in this area? What makes that track? Because I mean, Galat's the one place that I have literally never heard anyone complain about the facility or the way it operates. Like, I mean, I've raced a lot of places and there's always your complainers. That's just how racing is, but nobody complains about Galat. Why is that, do you think?
Man, to be honest, I don't know. Were you here when they first opened Galat? Like,
I don't think I was. I was here very shortly afterwards. I got here in 2020.
okay, so 2016, I think that's the year I finally went.
Mhm.
It was the day after my graduation. They had a points race Saturday, and I think only 8 people were entered in the points, believe it or not. And I went up there, and there's like this big, huge facility, and I parked beside Michael Crumpler, and I think there might have been 49 cars there. Believe it or not. And so, we get there, we're going, of course, Michael beat me third round, but yeah, it's just something about it now. I think what helped that track a lot was the exposure from PDRA
Mhm.
thing. Because, I mean, the fall swing there, I wouldn't be mad if they kept fall swing there and moved spring swing back to Bristol.
Mhm.
I think it's just people don't get to race on that type of scale of track often. And I think that's why we get so much bracket participation. The testing tunes are packed out. You only gonna usually get one pass at testing tune.
Mhm. Unless you're like me and get there when the gates swing open and be first one down the track, because I'll get 3 or 4 in like an hour and I'll go home.
You got to have a method to get testing tune done. But it's an interesting topic that we have here, because along with that, I've never been to Galat, right? Galat is the most, probably next to the ambiance of Bristol, okay? Because Bristol's ambiance is what captures my thought process. Like waking up, I don't even run that much, but going for a run at the racetrack at like 5 in the morning when the sun comes up, seeing the mountains, getting the fresh, crisp air, that's what I feel about Bristol. When I see Galat on a TV screen, it looked like a Nintendo game. They're so pretty. Or let me not use Nintendo because the graphics ain't good enough. It looked like a PlayStation 5 video game where graphics are just perfect, except it's real life. You got the winner across the scoreboard. Everything about Galat is pretty. Do you think Motormania TV being there for a lot of those PDRA races likely, and always streaming the fling event and the loose rocker events when they come, you think that give a little bit more of a publicity to that track as well?
Man, it's just like watching it on Motor Mania, just like at Bristol. I've never been to Bristol yet, but I plan on it this year. But watching Bristol on Motor Mania, it just looks like one of the beautifulest facilities out there.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, even a couple of flings, I was watching the Galat fling from the house this past year before I got to ride out there the weekend. And I was like, man, it's crazy that we got that. I mean, Casey a couple minutes up the road and I got it an hour away. But it's just unbelievable how it looks on that screen until when you really get there. I mean, it's just immaculate.
And literally the world's best scoreboards too.
That's a
The
fact.
best scoreboards on earth.
I mean,
that's a fact.
you never race a facility like that where, that was the first place. Like a lot of people are going towards those LED style scoreboards now. But when I first moved here, it's the first time I ever saw them. And I've never seen a scoreboard where you can literally at the starting line, you don't have to ever wonder. Like sometimes if you're dialed, say 16, sometimes it looks like it could be 618 or it could look like 613 or something like that. You never have that problem at Galat because they could turn it on and show you yourself on TV if they wanted to.
Yeah.
No,
But so talking about Galat being one of the premier facilities in North Carolina, I know that you had a lot of experience when you were little growing up at Brewers, and I want to know more about Brewers because Alan Boykin, I'm sure he's watching this show. He talks about Brewers all the time in the 90s. Michael Crumpler has told me a million stories about Brewers, and I think you kind of grew up out there, didn't you?
All right. So the Tobacco Field Nationals at Kinston,
Mm-hmm.
that was originally the Cornfield Nationals at Brewers.
Okay.
So Brewers, I'm pretty sure he's told you, it's in Georgia's backyard.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of tracks that we go to, and then you go to Brewers, and you probably be like, man, this place will never work.
Mm-hmm.
They drag a tractor tire to prep it, bring it to the 60 foot, and you're like, oh man, the track is wavy, but it's always been it. So I think I started going to Brewers. I was around 7 or 8. I think I went to the last few Cornfield National races. And I mean, my grandpa's told me a story. There used to be, it'd get to a max capacity and they turn racers away.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, like one year, there were so many cars. It's funny that he say that. I think the Cornfield Nationals won't be like a $3-5 race. And he was like, there's so many cars. He blew a motor up first round, drove all the way back home. Now, Brewers is about 40-minute drive from his house. Went back home, swapped the motor, got back, and they were running the finals by the time he got back to the track.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Don't they have a huge overhang over the starting line, too?
They have
Like
a
a shade
huge
tree?
overhang over the starting line. They have a pier at the starting line for, like, handicapped people. They get all the good close-up racing. I won there 2017. I think I won an all race. I got a funny story about my first win there too.
Tell us the story, man. That's what the show's all about.
Let's hear it.
So there was an all run race. So there's top and foot breakers, and there's 4 guys left. There's me, I think Mike Joyner and his Vega, and 2 other guys that were foot breaking. And of course, you know, there wasn't no pairing. There wasn't no on a ladder, nothing. It's old school, no crossover, old school stuff, right? I'm like, I got like 10-10 in the box and a 620 cord, like old stuff right there. And so we get up there. My grandpa's like, hey, these are my buddies. I think you should split it 4 ways. I said, no, I'm going to win this race. I don't think I need to split. He's like, well, they're my buddies. You should split it. I said, okay, fine. We'll split. I said, but if I win this race, you're going to give me that $750 I'm missing out on. It was $1,000, winner take all, $20 an enter, no buybacks, make as many time runs you want for an hour, old school style, like the good stuff. And so, of course, I went on to win my first race, or my first top race there. And that next day, he's like, whips out $750, gives it to me because I told him I was going to win it.
Now, speaking of that, that was something that I wanted to get into also about Brewers because Alan always told me. So I talk to Alan usually, pretty much every Friday, and he just tells me old stories about North Carolina racing back in the 90s, like the heyday time, And he was telling me, number one, side note, he told me a story about Brewers that I guess a couple heads up guys went down there and went like 420s or something down there, something like that. So that was number one. But number two, he said, like you were saying, it's like $25 entry fee. They'd pack the house. It'd be like $1,000 to win. He said one time they were down there even, and there were so many people there. They counted like 13 sheriffs because there were so many people there. But do you think there's room today for like somewhere out here anyway, or even across the country, whatever, for these smaller tracks to do stuff like that? Because Roger Rhodes always packs the house too, So do you think that there's room for like people still want to race like $25 entry fee, put it all on top, might only be $1,000 up there, but you get all these people to show up and we can all race for cheap?
I really think there is, and the triple nickel race was a prime example of that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pay this huge purse. You don't have to charge this extreme entry fee. People gonna show up because people want to race. I mean, it was the first race of the season for North Carolina, really, but I really think, you know, I'll be brainstorming with Matt because Matt's the main announcer at Gillette, and you know, I called him that Saturday night, and we got to talking. He was like, "What do you think we should do?" I said, and they ran with my plan, honestly. I said Friday, give everybody a test and tunes because we didn't get it in Thursday. Gamblers race Friday night, and then I said do a 10 and a 5 because, you know, 5 times 3 is 15.
Right.
He said, let's make it even better. Let's do 2 10s for 155.
Right. Yeah, man. And like you said, I mean, there were more door cars there than I have ever seen anywhere since I've been here, man. Like me and Michael Crumpler were sitting here and I was like, there's got to be 150 door cars here. He goes, I think there might be more than that, man, because we filled up front to back all 6 lanes. We were even using lane 1, which kind of confused me for a minute because you don't ever use lane 1, but we started using lane 1. And I was like, man, there's a ton of cars here. Like, this is awesome. Me and Michael are like, this is awesome. And there's like 1 or 2 guys like, man, this sucks. There's too many cars here, blah, blah. And we're like, dude, this is why the track's open. Like, this is awesome. Look at all these door cars here. We can look at, talk to everybody. Everybody's up here hanging out. You got enough time. You can walk up and watch some runs, even though you're racing, because usually you don't have time to do that. You got to kind of be close by the car. But you could go up and stand on the starting line and watch for a while, you know? So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I was actually shocked how many people showed up because we brainstormed earlier in the week, and I said low side, I said 250, high side 325, and I think we were almost at 400.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
It was door cars, which was very shocking at a 10 grander.
That's what I thought too, is I was very surprised that there were so many door cars, because typically in that scenario, when you have all these entries, it's because, you know, people will bring 3 or 4 dragsters in a trailer and they'll all be doubled. So you got 8 entries, every single trailer, you know, every one of those stackers a lot of times, but it was a whole lot of door cars. And I think it's like you said, it's because you can run 2 days of a 10 grander for $155. So you can double enter for $300 and you're essentially entered in 4 10 granders. You know, like you're not, and the buyback was only, I think, like what, $50, 50, well, it was supposed to be 55 and they upped it to 75 when they doubled the purse, I believe, which isn't that, still not bad. But the point is that, you know, again, cheap racing, people want to race.
Even Matt said it himself. He said he didn't want this race to be like, wow, this is like a big money, like you get your heavy hitter. He said this race was just supposed to be a fun season opener. Everybody come out, get some racing in, not breaking your wallet, have a good time, whether you win or lose. I mean, and I had a great time, and I think I got the 4th Saturday and 3rd Sunday, but I mean, I'm just shaking the rust off anyway, but.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, man. I couldn't hit the tree worth a crap that weekend. So I was the same, only I just inverted the results. I was 4th on Sunday and 3rd on Saturday, I think. But man, it was a really fun event, though. I'm glad that they had that, and I hope they have some more stuff like that, because it goes to show you how many race cars there really are around. You know, and I know, like you said, it was the first one of the year, and we got a lot of people from VMP that we probably wouldn't get if VMP was doing something. You know, well, Allison, she won Saturday. She won the VMP championship last year, I'm pretty sure.
Allison was a complete machine Saturday night.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have hated to been beside her at any point. I think she laid down with she was 5 total and then 3 total from semis to finals.
Yeah. It's wild, man. I mean, that's why she was the champion last year. You know what I mean? So it's you know, that's what you got to compete with at Galat, though. Like, it's by far the toughest track that I think as a consensus, anybody I've talked to that's actually raced there on a regular basis and does travel around, it's by far one of the most difficult places to race at because people are all killers there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So let me ask this question too, because we're on the subject. Do you think if you were to hold that same event again, the turnout would be the same, even minus the VMP crowd, or do you think VMP is coming back too?
My opinion.
Hey, any either one of you, it don't matter to me.
Oh.
Yep.
I mean, so unofficially, I was talking to Matt Zapp because of my Facebook post. I posted that it was a double dime, right? And so, we usually have the Blackjack 21 grander before the fling. And he said, how about we do the double dime before the fling and we do 2 10s for 200?
Oof.
It's just unofficial. But I told him, it'll pack the house again. 125 for a single day, 200 for the weekend.
Especially right before the fling, because those boys, they can typically, the people who will run the fling, they took the whole week off anyway. They're just going to come early.
And half of the week before that.
Blackjack.
Yeah, half the week before it. Yeah.
Yeah, because they just come for the blackjack race anyway. I mean, the blackjack race has just as many entries as the fling. $21,000 to win. You can double it for $400. I thought so. So, are you thinking that what they're going to do is they're going, because from what I saw, they got rid of blackjack. They took last weekend's what was supposed to be the first weekend of points, and they now basically what was supposed to be second weekend of points. They were going to run that as the first weekend. They're replacing blackjack with the extra points race that was canceled last week. So you're thinking that potentially could be 2 10-granders?
Before the rescheduling of that points race, that's what it was just kind of a brainstorm idea that he was just feeding to me and thought what I think of it. But I mean, it could be just a regular points race that weekend, but some guys are going to run. I mean, which some of them don't. Some of them get there sitting a whole lot for a week.
Wow.
I mean, at that point, if I'm that far,
you're
at the track, go ahead and get the run.
Right, exactly. And especially if you did something like what you were just saying, 2 10s for $200, they're going to run.
They're running that. There's no way they're not running that.
Yeah, you'd be an idiot not to do that because, like you said, you're already there. You're literally spending $200 more than it would take just to sit there all weekend. Why would you do that? Right. You want to get your runs because your goal is ultimately get your runs, get everything out of the way, and win the fling. That's your goal.
Right. Even if you single enter that, there's no point not entering that for $200 the race for the whole weekend at a shot for 10 G's.
I mean, the worst that can happen, you running the weekend before you win.
Or you get data. You get to learn Galat. I know most of these racers know Galat that are going to be traveling that direction. But if it were me, I can tell you right now, I'd be entered. I'd speak for pretty much the whole Atchison's racing team. If there's 2 10s for 200, you consider us in. Our whole team be in there. So expect to see that happening when you guys do host it. I hope they have some type of live stream there too. That'd be pretty nice to watch, to be honest. So anyway, guys, it's a perfect point in the show to give a quick break, and make sure you hit that like and share button here on the Going Bracket Racing show. Like and share, subscribe, follow whichever platform you catch us on. We will be right back with more from Quez the Duck. Hang in there. BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts are able to provide you with whatever you desire to enhance your drag racing operation. Items like safety belt magnets, nitrous bottle holders, and even quick release delay box mounts are able to be obtained from BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts. Have a look at top selling items such as helmet hooks and steering wheel hooks, which are proven to make it easier to maneuver throughout your race car. You can contact BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts at telephone number 765-729-1177.
TSR Racing Products has everything you need to make your Power Glide Turbo 350, Turbo 400, and 727 transmissions the best they can be on the street or at the track. With exceptional products, customer service, and over 30 years of experience, TSR Racing Products is always available to help their customers with any of their transmission needs. In-house machining ensures you only receive the best products from TSR Racing. Visit TSR Racing Products at tsr-racing.com or give them a call at 800-394-5889.
Here's the skinny on the ProForm Slim Fit radiator systems. They are the industry's first and only 4-inch thick radiator system. That's the radiator plus the shroud plus the fan combined. A complete unit that's up to 40% thinner than others on the market. Fully assembled for performance out of the box. Eliminate the stress and frustration that comes as precious weekend hours are lost trying to upgrade your cooling system with major space constraints. The Slim Fit system utilizes 2 patented pieces of technology, allowing for a seamlessly integrated radiator system with a 3rd tank in the center of the radiator where the high-performance fan motor is installed inside the core, not hanging off the shroud. The coolant can flow all the way through the radiator, eliminating dead space. And it looks especially great under the hood. Sleek angles, eye-catching perforations, and a smooth aluminum shroud complete the streamlined 4-corner design that defines style and a well-put-together engine bay.
Welcome back, Going Bracket Racing Show. Live with Quez the Duck. You know it can't be possible. Thank you to our first of all, thank you to you, the followers, the viewers, for always chiming in, giving great questions out. I see you all in the chat with a guest on here. It's a little bit hard to get to all the questions, but we'll try to get down and we'll go through the list a little bit before the stream is over with there. But ProForm Parts, thank you for being a partner with us. TSR Racing Products, thank you as well. Got to shout out BRG as well. Along with all the other sponsors, Driven Racing Oil, Ken Jones Performance Team 14, Syntex Printing, and that other sign that says your ad here. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate you ahead of time. So, getting back into the show, Quez, next question here. I feel like you and I both could answer this question. Actually, all of us could answer this question pretty easily. But can a low-budget operation compete with the big boy toys today?
Yes, they can. Prime example, my Camaro, very low budget car. It's a 454. No, I think it's 454. Ain't been bored out. Flat tappet cam, over port heads, stock heads, just been ported. Edelbrock intake, dominated carburetor, 660s everywhere I go. As consistent as any car, any given day. I believe from Halloween Havoc 2021, the time slips, it ran from a 63 to a 65 over 3 days.
Oh, wow.
That was 22.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man, that's I agree with you on that for sure. And I'm not 100% certain that a lot of people are kind of coming around to that thought process of going back to the slower cars that are lower maintenance and cheaper to initially invest in them. When you don't have high-strung motors, you don't need to freshen them every single year. Motors like that, you can put 700, 800 runs on them before anything's really going to happen. I mean, I was just talking to Adam Boulier last night, and he said he had I want to say a 509 or something like that back in the day, and he said he would hate to know how many runs he ended up having on it. But I feel like that's the threshold kind of right there.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I always do this. My bad over to Champ's Performance. He drives a pretty slow car too. Shout out Champ's Performance being one of those marketing partners as well. But another guy who I'm not going to call that car low budget by any means, but does it run 7s though?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a purpose-built 7-second car or if it's just the fact that that's what it goes.
He won a lot of 50s in that one year, didn't he, Quez?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on a tear with that little thing for a while.
Man, so
And I think it has to do a lot. And if you go back and look in the archives, it was probably a couple years ago now, but when we originally had Champ on here, I think he mentioned something along the lines of no one can really judge him, but he's used to seeing everybody run up on him in that car, so he can then judge them because, a lot of people don't realize I've been lucky and I've kind of got to drive a little bit of everything, like slow door cars, faster door cars. I'm building a really fast door car now. Hopefully, we'll find out. but I've driven dragsters, of kind of all speeds and whatnot. And a lot of people don't realize that just like you can't really judge that dragster coming up on you at 140, 150, and you're going about 100, they can't judge you either. So if that's the same, apples to apples there, then why not spend less money?
It's a true statement.
Going back to a dragster, being a door car person,
Mm-hmm.
I did struggle with it with Camaro because it's a 10-mile-an-hour difference from the nose in the Camaro, so I had to adjust to it. And the same trick the Camaro wouldn't work in the nose. But, I say the same thing. If you're running about 108, 110 through the 80, people always say, oh, you can't see that dragster, or you can't see that dragster. All right, if they're 440s and 420s, I agree. I can't see that car when they're coming up. But like a 460 to 490 car, when they get to that mile-an-hour cone, if they're not at my door, they're not getting it.
Right. Yeah. And it's just all about learning the car and driving the car and going racing. And again, that kind of goes back to what we were saying about Brewers being cheap enough where you could race. You could, for $20, I mean, everybody's going to buy as many entries as you'll let them buy,
Yep.
And that's how you get seat time. And that's how you learn stuff like that. And it's all about getting the seat time. But the thing, you can only test and tune so much. You can make your car good at test and tune. You can't make yourself a good racer at test and tune. Not the finish line side. I mean, you can learn to hit the tree and stage and stuff like that. But you can only race when you're racing.
Yep.
And unfortunately, to learn how to really drive the finish line, you have to sacrifice a lot of rounds trying to try stuff because you're going to be wrong a lot of the time. But one day, whenever you get a hold of it, where do you think Nasty Nick comes from? Where do you think Jeff Serra comes from? Et cetera, et cetera. It's because they made tons and tons and tons of runs, and that's how you learn to drive the stripe like they do.
We got Urban Askew in here. He says, my little S10, 357 cubic inches runs 680s. So, I mean, he's out there shooting, coming on alongside of him, getting ran up on pretty hard too. And I know I'm in this, like you said, about 117, 116 range in my S10, right about 6 flat normally. And I think you're right about that 460, 470 range on up. Man, if they ain't in a certain spot, they ain't getting you. A lot of the work you're going to do is going to be right there at that mile-an-hour cone in the first place when you're running a dragster, in my opinion. Like, I can't start lifting that 500-foot versus no dragster. I can't do that, okay? But definitely, that was a very very interesting comment you made there. I'm duly noted and like, yeah, that makes sense to me. When I go back on the GoPro and look at it, where did I take care of business? Normally, it's in the mile-an-hour cone because he wasn't there. So, yeah, you're right about that, Quez.
Yeah, that's
So, go ahead.
3,500 pound sled. So when I hit the brake, she's stopping.
Yeah, I learned that in Dylan Champion's car too. Whenever with stock brakes and stuff like that, they drag a little bit more than my car does. And whenever I was lifting, I thought I was killing like maybe 1 or a little more every time I lifted, and I'm killing like 2 or 2.5. And Adam's like, dude, that thing's heavy and it's got stock brakes. It slows down. I was like, yeah, I figured that out.
You know, I will mention this too. I got into a battle with a good friend of mine out there at Ardmore, and he ran up on me. I think he was down 480s. And everybody knows I have the Crew Chief Pro software now. Well, I'm going through my time slip, and I put in his information and mine. And Crew Chief Pro detected that both of us dropped at close to the same time, which is interesting. How they did that on one ticket that I input. So it said braking detected. is what it said on that machine. You guys got to get a shot to look at that Crew Chief Pro. Pretty intricate system that I'm learning here now. So ask any questions you got, and if I don't know the answers, I'll call Don and he'll hook us both up. So I had to throw that out there, Casey. Pretty interesting stuff.
That is interesting that it would do something like that. I didn't even know about that feature.
Braking detected.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it told me I killed 003 to 004, and I dropped right in between the mile an hour cone and the finish line. So hypothetically, I shouldn't kill more than 005 right there in that spot. In my opinion, not in a 2,400 pound, not stock brake. It ain't gonna drag, and when I hit the brakes, it ain't just gonna stop like that. So I scrubbed,
So, Quez, what's kind of the theme of this entire I guess podcast right here is, do you think that, obviously the question we're on right now is low budget teams. Do you think that as far as a low budget guy, is your money best spent on the car or best spent on the entry fee?
In my perspective, get the car right first. Get the car where you got a good tune-up. It'll work anywhere. You can go to any track and it'll repeat the same number. That's a lot of problems I see with a lot of people who just start out. They get something that's inconsistent and won't run the same thing. They're having carburetor issues. Torque converter ain't set up right. I mean, we did a lot of R&D with the Nova because it wasn't supposed to be as fast as it is. But we're still shooting for 590 with a completely all steel, non-back half car.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not light like mine.
Like, I'd be in the fives real fast if I had your chassis for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a lot of R&D. I mean, I had to get up with a couple people. When we built that 496, I think we had 28 spline axles in it. So of course the axles was the weak link. So it's just a lot of R&D, a lot of testing you got to do. It took me a while to get the Nova where it is going that fast because we had to get all the right setups because they weren't used to leaving that hard. I had to learn suspension setups, what worked where, what didn't, tire pressures. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff you just got to keep trying and whatever works for you, really. Because, I mean, my issue for a while, I mean, a lot of people probably know that we run with, like 2019, I had the motor and transmission and converter out of that car 3 times in the month of March. I could not catch a brake. Everything just kept breaking. And then I put something new in there and I had to relearn that. Put something new, relearn it. And I could never get a feel and grasp for the car. But, I mean, just put more money into it. I stayed local until I got the car right. But this year, I think I'm going to venture back out since I got a grasp on the car, what it wants, what it needs. But, yeah, I really think that's it. You just got to know the car, get used to your car, and you can go out here and compete with the best of them. You just got to get your setup right.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, and kind of leads me into my next question, too, because the younger generation, we have to preserve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bracket racing can't go anywhere because I want to race for a long, long, long time, and I want to watch my kids race when I'm done. You know what I'm saying? So do you think the younger generation is staying involved with bracket racing nowadays, or do you think they're maybe spending their money in the wrong spots, kind of like what we're talking about right now?
From what I see, it seems like a bunch of the younger generation is they're getting hopped like right into something that their parents drove, kind of like I did. And so, I mean, everybody, they want to go fast. That's everybody's goal. I don't care if you're a bracket racer or heads-up racer, you want to go fast.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it's the younger generation, I think they like it. Like a lot of the junior kids, there's a lot of threats I see in the junior dragster ranks right now because of how dedicated and how much time they put into it. Like Lane Morgan, who runs that lot, like that kid's gonna be pretty tough. Jaden Lawler, he's running top right now. he come out of juniors. I mean, the kid was holding 3/10 in juniors, winning almost every weekend. And hey, you see him scoop rocking about every weekend now. But I mean, a lot of the younger generation, I think we're all right in bracket racing case. I don't think they're going to venture off too far, especially if their parents were doing it or if they were real in it in juniors and they're ready to move up. They're going to be all right.
Yeah, it's just like Michael Beard says all the time, anytime anybody brings up there's no new blood in the sport. He said, I saw something he said the other day. He's like, 1980, there's no new blood. That's the problem. 90s, same thing. 2000, on and on and on.
Huh.
And yet here we still are, all these years later, everything's fine. So, and like you said, it makes their transition a lot easier. I mean, I did the same thing. My dad had a car lined out for me, and I stepped straight into a good car whenever I was younger too. So it's a lot less discouraging because the problem is you have to be good when you come out of juniors because you're getting thrown to the sharks if you're going straight into top, especially nowadays. And if you have a car that's not really set up, it can get discouraging really quick because not only do you not understand, I don't care how good of a junior racer you are, you don't understand the speed differentiation. You never have experienced that big of a mile an hour gap. I mean, just think about it. Our mutual buddy, Brandon Lane, he runs like 145 mile an hour. My Nova runs 100. Like you've never experienced that type of mile an hour difference in junior dragsters. So
right.
That's, so you're learning that, you're learning closure rates. You're learning how you got to be 00 every single time. And sometimes I saw Tim Thomas was 2 total at Darlington last year and lost. It's there's just a lot to get on top of, and then to have a car that won't repeat on top of it can get very discouraging and make you not really know if you belong there or not. So it's good that their parents do have something good for them to step right into.
Yep. No, that's true. Everybody knows the story of how I got my S10, and that was my first real race car I've really ever raced, except for the Corvette. Of course, that was my father's build. Just happened to be lucky enough to be able to pilot it a couple times, but definitely I still have my own learning curves to go through currently with my car. So the story doesn't end, and if it does, maybe you're looking at it at the wrong way when it comes to your car. You should always be, in my opinion, grabbing some type of data off your machine. So
absolutely.
I'm looking at this, so I think everybody got to get in the Indian style, sit down on the carpet, get some popcorn. I'm ready for this. Yeah,
so this is the story time with Quez section, because every time that I have ever talked to Quez at the track, ever since he figured out we had this show, he was like, man, when are you going to let me get on there? I got lots of racing stories. Well, I contacted several of his buddies to get some racing stories. So I don't even know this full story at the first one because I was talking to Brent. And Brent said, first of all, I'm not sure if these are 2 different stories, so I'm going to ask you just a little bit of it. Is the Piedmont Mini Million, does that have to do with the sketchy hotel?
Uh-oh, he just laughs.
Yeah. I don't remember a lot from that, but that was a very, very interesting weekend. And that was also the first weekend that I found out about the elite bracket races of the world. That's the first weekend I saw T-Rock, the whole FTI group, the whole, basically everybody that's in the big money racing scene now, they were there for that first mini million. And that was my first sight of seeing, like, wow, like, I thought the guys I raced every weekend were like, I mean, not taking nothing away from them, that they're good, but these guys are like the full-time racing guys. I was like, oh, wow, like, these guys are the real deal. Like, I'm glad my car's at the house. Like,
so he told me another story, too, that he wanted you to tell, where I guess you guys left the house. You were going to leave at 5 in the morning so you could go hit 2 tracks in the same day or something.
All right. This is the Darlington point shirt story. All right. So, he hits me up early in the week. He's like, hey, man, you want to go to Darlington? I'm like, sure. He said they got 2 races in one day. I said, beautiful. That sounds like a great time. Because if I suck early in the day, I can recover later on. I'm up 5:30, dude. I'm on 95, 5:30, southbound, ready, headed down there. I think timers were 9 in the morning, and it's a 2-hour and 45-minute drive. So we're 5:30 on 95 rolling. So we get there, of course. Darlington's tree is really fast, so if you ever go, be prepared because I was used to racing around here. They got a little lag in it, so you get time to kind of breathe. Darlington, you ain't got no breathing room. So I was like a good 30 to 40 spread. We get there, okay, and so they said we're gonna start the second race while we're down to 8 in the first race. I was like, oh, that'll be fine because this is like 4 o'clock. They're in like 4th or 5th round by now. I was like, oh, we're good. So I don't know if this was a normal Darlington thing back then, but they call new entry time rooms, and there's like 50 to 60 cars in top for new entry time rooms. And I was like, I don't see these people pulling the gate. I mean, there's 40 foot breakers and I think 20 more juniors. So I'm like, we had a whole maybe hour and a half of time room. So needless to say, we didn't start the second race till about 9 o'clock that night. Darlington's no curfew. That was new.
No curfew.
So I go up there first round. I was like 40. So I told Brent, I said, we're just going to throw a Hail Mary right here. It's first round buybacks only. I throw a Hail Mary, I roll 40 out the box. I'm perfect. Go down there, that's round 1. That's at 9:38. I still have the time slip from this race. And believe it or not, we go up for round 2. I'm sitting on the bye. And I'm like, cool, I got the bye. Right? I'm rolling under the tower at Darlington. And a guy comes up, pulls up beside me. And I was like, geez.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I feel it because I've been up almost 18 hours. So I'm feeling it bad at this point. And so I'm like, all right, maybe, we'll see. All right, so I roll up there. I'm 3 red. I rolled 6 in to be 3 red. Should have rolled 10 in, got in my 10 spot. Didn't do it. So I'm out second round. And so I parked the car. I go ahead and load it up on the trailer. Now, mind you, I get my time slip. And the exact time I went across the stripe and that slip printed was 11:54 p.m. Second round, right? So Brent's still in, by the way. He's still knocking them in the head.
Yeah, he would be.
And I got my car on the trailer. I'm sitting in the truck. I think I go watch him win one more round. I think that was third round. And so I'm in the truck. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm just going to nod off real quick, because I saw he was getting pretty hot. So I said, we're going to be here for a while. So I'm just going to nod off real quick. So, of course, I'm asleep. Brent comes over, knocks on the window. He's like, hey, man, we're getting ready to load up and roll out. I'm clueless to what time it was at this point. So I just hop out the truck, strap my car down, load everything up, and we're pulling out. And I check the clock, and it's 3:30 a.m.
Still got to drive all the way home.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I lost the semis. I said, it's 3:30 in the morning, dude.
Should have just got in the truck and went to sleep.
So we hit Waffle House on the way back. Grabbed coffee. That lasted till I got to maybe south of the border.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's hit me bad. We're almost reaching 24 hours of being awake. And, Brent and his dad, they're dog leaning it up 95, and I'm 45 mile per hour, rumble strip to rumble strip in the back there. I'm like, Lord, please let me get back to Brent's house. That's the story of why, if there's no curfew, we will never run another 2-in-1 day event.
But he made it. So that leads us to the next question. Next story. Scott Lewis says there's a story you have about going to Coastal and the Nova almost passed you on the trailer.
Oh,
All right. This is the anniversary of this is coming up, so be sure to check Facebook. But Coastal has those night races. They have night point races, so the gates open at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and they start at like 6:30. So I was like, I hit up Big Brown. I was like, hey man, I'm just gonna come hang at your house. Just for a couple hours, we can hang out. Talk racing or whatever. He's like, all right, man, I'm here. I was like, okay. So I'm all loaded up. It's about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm coming down 258, headed towards Jacksonville. And we get there, and I'm like, man. So I put my phone down. I was changing I remember this exact how it happened. I'm on my phone. I changed the song. I put my phone down. All right, so I get back. I'm locked on the road, and I start getting a bad vibration out the back of my truck. And I'm like, what is going on? So this is where it gets really sketchy. I have oncoming traffic, and the person in front of me is stopping to turn at their house, but they're a good, I say, 8 mile in front of me. All right. I look back again. I look at the side view mirror, and I can't see the side of my car anymore. I said, okay. I look up in the rear view mirror, and I see the front left corner of my car. So and we're going about 45 miles per hour at this point, and I'm fully convinced trailer is not connected to the truck anymore. So at this point, I felt like I did what the only option I had at that point was I kind of guided the trailer to the ditch. The guy was still sitting there in the road. I still had oncoming traffic, and the worst thing I wanted to happen was that trailer come back onto the road, and then I ended up hurting a bunch of people because 258 at 12 o'clock is a pretty busy highway. And so I cut the trailer off with my truck. The truck, I'm spinning around in the middle of the road. And the whole time while I'm spinning, I got my eyes locked on my car and that trailer as it's sliding down the ditch.
The Nova's been through a lot.
It has. So I FaceTime Big Brown. I'm like, hey, man. He's like, hey, where you at? I said, I'm in the ditch. And he's like, what? I'm like, no kidding. I'm in the ditch. I flipped the phone around. He's like, do you need help? And I'm like, I'm not sure how you can help me at this point. So then, of course, state trooper, I called Gramps up. I'm like, hey, I was like, my car's in the ditch, truck's across the street, but I'm okay. I really want okay. I had hurt my back pretty bad. I slammed against the center console and it pretty hard when it initially hit me. But he was like, what do I need to bring? I said, if this thing fires up, I said, bring the truck and trailer. So they drag it out the ditch. I got it on the main highway. It fires up. I said, all right. I said, he was like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the track. Oh, that's.
So how'd that night end up? Did you win any money? Because if you'd have won that race, that would have been unbelievable.
Believe it or not, I get down there. We're gonna get to the end of the night. But of course, I get my other truck and trailer, load up, head on down there. Car is covered in mud and dirt. It looks like I just left Southern National at a dirt track race. So I'm sitting there just trying to knock all the dust and dirt off. I'm pretty sure I left the dust cloud on the first time around, but whatever. So here was the sketchiest part about that night. It kinked my shifter cable and I didn't know it. And so part was irrelevant, didn't have part. So part on the shifter was reverse. Reverse was neutral. And then part was reverse, yep. There was no neutral. It was high and low. That's all I had. So there's wheel chocks in the trunk in the staging lanes. I finally found neutral so I could actually crank it without cranking it in gear. And so to shift this, I had to readjust it every round. And I only had one shot at this. Once I pulled it once, it was over with. It was out of adjustment again.
Wow.
And so if I ever had to back up, I was screwed.
Oh,
So I
wow.
kept my burnouts really short and simple. But the way that I had to do it was low gear was low and high on the shifter. And I had to hit the reverse lockout and put it in reverse to go to high gear. And I made it to 11 cars.
Ooh.
I ran Peter Evans in the dragster, and I broke out 3,000, taking like 19 that night.
Ooh. Dang.
But I said, I really hope, the whole time I was running, I was like, I really, really hope this thing does not decide to get right and go into reverse when I shift this thing.
No kidding.
Wow.
Hey, man, that's I don't even know what to say about that one. I would feel like just staging for first round, you've already won the whole event. But I got to hear this story, man, too, because you said there was a story also whenever we were in the pre-show here that Sakori Moore brings you a new race car in the middle of the race or something.
All right. Oh, you remember I told y'all earlier the 28 splines in the Nova?
Yeah.
That was at Rockingham. All right.
And he lives in Durham, doesn't he?
I think on the other side of Sanford. He won't know the clue.
Oh, okay.
So I go out there that Saturday. No, it was a Friday. It was a Friday. I forgot what race it was. But I broke an axle. I think we were down to like 16. I broke an axle. I did the nastiest one-wheel peel burnout you'll ever see from a drag. At that point, I was just hoping the guy went red because that right side was no longer connected to my drive.
Jeez.
And I called him up. I'm like, hey, man, I need a car. And no questions asked. He was like, I'll be there in the morning. And to be sure, he brought me a car. I got down to 16 again the next day in his car. Well, I went from 620s to 720s overnight. But that little car he had, like I said, a budget car, that thing was flat out nasty. I think it was just a little 305 on alcohol and I think it was old Stalker.
Mm-hmm.
For what it was, just stock suspension on 9-inch radials, that thing was flat out now. It stayed on a 724 all day, and I got 16 again with it. But he's another one, man. I really appreciate him. He helped me out a lot. He didn't have to do that. I mean, he was at the house just chilling. He had no intentions of coming.
Yeah.
And he ended up doing pretty good the same day. I think we lost the same round.
He's building a dragster now, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that'll be interesting to see because every time I talked to him at Triple Nickel. He was out there and he came over to the trailer and I was talking to him. He changed his mind on what he's doing again. So you never know. He's going to come out and randomly go 440s or something, knowing him.
Man, he's hard to get a grasp for sure.
So, who you got to thank before you get out of here, man? We've come up on that hour, and it's easy to do here at the GBR. And
Yep.
Coming up on an hour is real easy to do. Who you got to thank before you get out of here, Quez?
Everybody. I can say that. Everybody. You guys, the Stove family, the Sassers, the Roundtrees, Sean Brown, everybody, dude. A lot of people have my back. They helped me a lot. I try to, pay it forward. That's kind of a little quote we always went by at the household for a while. Pay it forward. And that's what I try to do. A lot of people help me out, so I try to always help them out.
I heard that, man. I heard that. Well, we certainly appreciate you taking an hour and coming to hang out with us, and we'll try to get you back on here before it's all said and done. Maybe for one of them live from the 8th Mile events, Casey. That might be pretty good to get him at Galat while he's out there on the live screen. But that'd be pretty neat right there. But as always, Casey, you got anything to close out?
No, man, just again, got to shout out those sponsors, TSR, Champs Performance, Team 14, Driven Racing Oil, Proform Parts, Crew Chief Pro, BRG 3D Printed Products, Syntex Printing out there in Temple, Texas. And who else am I forgetting, George? You switched the screen on me, man. I was cheating.
Hey, man, you got champs. I think you got them all. I think you got them all, Casey. I think you get driven.
I got driven. I'm practicing for loose rocker. I'm hoping that Ryan Gladehorn interviews me this weekend.
I got you. Well, if we missed you, we won't miss you on the next one. Thanks for all you do. Special shout out to you followers and watchers and listeners and viewers and supporters of GBR. We can't thank you enough. As always, guys, we will see you next Tuesday. Hang in there. We'll see you then.